welcome to Bronx Talk. Well, it's become a tradition around here. In fact, this is our 8th time doing it, that when we get to the new year, we bring in Joe Raskin of Wandering New York to show off his Bronx photos. What makes Joe's photos interesting and distinctive is that he takes what some might see as ordinary scenery in the Bronx and gives us a new look at our neighborhoods, buildings, and homes so that we notice and appreciate them maybe like we never have before. He's with us on Skype this evening, so let's welcome to Bronx Talk Wandering New York, and tonight it's Wandering the Bronx, our longtime friend Joe Raskin. Nice to have you with us, Joe.
Nice to be back, Gary. Glad to be with you.
And here in our studio to help us with a little bit of history and some perspective on some of these photos is the president of the Huntington Free Library and Reading Room, Angel Hernandez. Nice to have you with us again.
Thanks for having me here, Gary.
Joe, let's just start with you. Talk about the origin of Wandering New York. The rest of us, we come around, we take pictures all the time, but we don't quite get the same look at Bronx buildings like you do. When did you get this idea that there was more to this than just looking at a building and saying, well, this is where I live?
Well, it's just that everybody seems to take the same pictures of New York in general. The Empire State Building, the United Nations, and things like that, or in the Bronx, the Yankee Stadium and things like that. And I wanted to take a look at the neighborhoods in the city the way you would if you were doing it as a tourist type of thing.
So you, as I know, had a background in transit, and you were very familiar with the subway system. So I guess it's of note that you don't go driving places. You take the train. I mean, what you've told me in the past, you take the train and you just get out somewhere and take a look, right? Is that how it works?
That's just about it. I start out from a station or a bus stop, and I just try to go figure out where I'm going to stop, when I'm going to stop, and just try and take pictures. Just take pictures where inspiration takes me.
When you go out and see like a building and say, wow, this is interesting architecture or something interesting, do you work at taking the photo, or do you do just what the rest of us do and just get a good angle and you snap it, or with a phone you push the button?
I get a good angle. If I put too much thought into a picture, it's probably no good. So I just want to get something that takes it where inspiration takes me. Just want to get the type of shot that looks interesting to people.
Let's bring Angel into the conversation. The Bronx has a range of architectural structures. Our buildings have been built in all different eras. Maybe you can characterize the borough of the Bronx versus maybe other boroughs or other locales as far as what our stuff looks like.
Absolutely. If you travel throughout the Bronx, you'll realize it's a huge museum of architecture and all types of beautiful structures. We have architecture dating back to the late 18th century till today. But not only do these beautiful buildings, no matter how they vary, they offer us a good glimpse of beauty, a good glimpse of what New York is, what the Bronx was. It also tells us a story. So when we study a certain type of architecture, it tells you a certain time period in Bronx history and in New York history as well.
So it's all linked up. In
Absolutely.
other words, you say, well, okay, that's beautiful architecture, but that was part of either something that went on in a neighborhood or history. All right, without further ado, talk is cheap. Let's put up photos and let's take here's a look at the first one. This is somewhere in University Heights. I guess it's up to you, Joe, to tell us what this is.
That's right. There's a whole series of buildings like this on University Avenue below Fordham Road, and it's the way the windows are, the way the front doors are. I found to be very interesting, and I just tried to get a good shot of it, of one building where there weren't a lot of cars in the front of it, which is kind of hard in a neighborhood like that.
Right. So did you stand on one of the cars and take that picture? No, I'm sure you didn't.
No.
Angel, what does that tell us about University and Fordham Road?
Yeah, so not a lot of people don't know that University Avenue is named after New York University, which later became Bronx Community College.
That's right, which is where NYU was.
So you had a lot of students living in the area, and in fact, a block away from Bronx Community College, you had all the professors living there as well. That building you're looking at, that's 2430 University Avenue. built in 1912, and it's of an Italian architecture. It's called Italianate, and it's highly influenced by Italian Renaissance, culture, structures. It's supposed to evoke that time period. And it's one of the most popular styles of architecture throughout the Bronx for many years.
And what era would that have been?
It would start from like right after the Civil War, all the way up into the 1890s and into the turn of the 20th century as well.
You know, I don't know that I've ever, I mean, I've visited many apartments in the Bronx. I live in a Bronx apartment. I would love to know what it looks like from the interior and see those rounded, it must be fascinating to live in there and have a real character within
Absolutely.
the buildings.
Yep.
You know. All right, let's go to number 2, numero dos. Okay, Joe, this is Van Ness. Again, look at we could walk by this building 100 times and never take a notice. What do you think, Joe?
That's what I want. I want to get pictures of people that look very familiar to people, and just never take the time to look at it as they are. And Van Ness is the type of neighborhood that people, if you don't live in the Bronx, you don't know Van Ness. And I just find it to be a very interesting neighborhood.
Well, interesting. You know, just look at that building. It's got the stairs that are run upstairs, and again that rounded structure. So go ahead, let's throw it to Angel. Let's talk about Van Ness, which was, by the way, recently named historic district by the Historic Districts Council.
Absolutely. Van Ness is a name that dates back to colonial times. It's part of Morris Park, which many years ago was a racetrack and later became into a living community. But if you notice those buildings there, they look like tiny fortresses, right?
Yes.
Right? So this is a Romanesque type of architecture, and it's basically supposed to look fortified with the round turrets and the stonework there. Some of this has been cited, but once again, it dates back to that Renaissance, bringing back the old classical style of architecture in the Bronx.
I suppose we'd all appreciate it if we could build buildings like that now, but the cost
it would cost a lot.
Because the care that it took to build those buildings.
And not only that, you had to bring artists from Europe sometimes to create these beautiful friezes and these reliefs. So it was quite expensive.
Fascinating. Let's go to this next one on Marshall Parkway. What do we got here? Here we go.
This picture, I've taken pictures of the other side of it. It goes out by East 204th Street. But it's an example of people using every inch of property there to build it. It's on weird angles, and it's just I loved it from this end also.
And again, I'm always thinking of the people inside the corner windows that must be just spectacular from the interior. Is that like near Gates Place and excuse me, and Knox Place, or is it further down?
It's on the other side.
It's on the other side.
It's 204th Street.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you said. Yes, 204th. Well, so what do you think, Angel?
Well, you're looking at an Art Deco style of architecture. And the Bronx happens to hold the second highest percentage of Art Deco buildings in the country.
In the country?
In the country.
And where is the other in New York somewhere?
Miami, South Beach.
Miami,
right?
Wow.
So, and just on the Grand Concourse alone, you have a high concentration. We're looking at 110 East Marshallou Parkway. And just a little history on the name Marshallou. It means water running over smooth stone in Lenni Lenape. So Marshallou Parkway was once a brook many years ago.
You know, and I remember that controversy came up when they were citing the water filtration plant because they were worried that there was so much water underneath the plant that's there. The next photo is nearby, a little further down. This, to me, it says on my notes, Woodlawn Heights. This looks to me like Bainbridge Avenue, somewhere near near where Montefiore Medical Center is. Joe, you tell us first.
Yeah. I thought I took it in Woodlawn Heights. So it's on the hill. It's on the hill, and it just I could see some of the Montefiore building in the background there.
So when you Well, Joe, when you walked by it, you just said, "Wow, this is gorgeous," and you don't know if you're going to get a great picture that's going to be focused, on BronxTalk or not. But it's so striking. It's lovely. It's an absolutely lovely house.
It looked interesting. It looked very interesting. What also struck me, the driveway, it's like it goes under the house there,
That's right.
and it just really jumped. The whole thing just sort of jumped out at me.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got,
this
Mr. Historian?
yeah. Well, this is a Tudor style architecture.
See, we've
right?
done already 4 different styles. Go ahead.
It denotes to the Tudor dynasty in England, dating back to the 1500s. And this is a classic example of it. If you see the timber integrated with the actual stucco, that is a telltale sign of a Tudor style house, and also a high pitched roof as well. So this is a beautiful house.
And so that X that's at the top there.
Yeah. That's just a wooden relief.
That's a wooden relief.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. And again, consider you talked about bringing in artists from elsewhere to design these things. This is extraordinary. I mean, somebody had to really take care to do that.
If you see the corners of the actual house, those are called quoins. And that's actual stone. That actually had to be cut and hewn and brought over.
Wow.
These quarries no longer are in operation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please never take the Bronx for granted again. We got a lot going on that you didn't even know about.
There is so
and thanks
much.
to Joe. All right, Joe, let's do the next one. Here we are on Walton Avenue.
On Walton Avenue, I'm not sure about what neighborhood this is. It's I wasn't sure if it was like off the Grand Concourse, obviously, but it's like I wasn't sure if we call it Melrose or Mott Haven. It's just it's just really just grabbed me walking up along Walton to take this picture. One of my obsessions in my photography is Edward Hopper's paintings. And this struck me as being like one of his art, one of his looked like one of his paintings. So I just said, I got to take a picture of this.
How long is that building? Because it looks like it would go on a long time. You probably would have to get a drone or something to get a good picture of it. But how wide? I mean, is that like the whole block? It looks like that. Is that what it is?
If memory serves, yes.
Wow. What do you think, Angel? Another type of architecture, obviously.
Actually, no. This is, again, this is Italianate architecture,
okay.
right? This is called a townhouse.
Like we
Italian.
did up on University Heights.
Yes, was the first one. And you have some telltale signs here. Italianate architecture has cornices, which is those structures, those protruding structures that are on top of the buildings that are still ornamental. Some of them are no longer around. They've been removed. But this is Italianate, and we're looking at 629 through 635 Walton Avenue.
Oh, there you go. You looked it up for us.
This is just north of East 149th Street near Hostos Community College.
Huh.
And this is 1901. These were built right at the turn of the 20th century. Yep.
Just as an aside, studying current history, so to speak, they're talking about a whole movement of new housing. Obviously, we're not going to get this kind of housing, but it will be interesting to see. Are we just going to build boxes or maybe do something?
Well, what you would notice throughout is you would see these new structures, but they're still using old features. They're still inspired. So you will see some influence.
All right,
there.
let's hope so. Let's go to the Grand Concourse. Well, this looks, if you would ask me where this is, I would say it's the Grand Concourse.
Yeah, I had to research this one.
Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, definitely. This is just. I love the Concourse. It's one of the most beautiful streets in the city, and I just love the way these buildings look. I find Corda was able to get the right angle at it, the right time of the year, and the right lighting. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I do go back to try and take some different pictures like this, and it's rather than going up along the east side of the Concourse, I went along over there to get it, and it just good time. It's just good timing. Sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time for me to get a shot like that.
What I like is
it's purely lucky.
What I like is it mixes the different types of architecture in one shot. Yeah. You can of course look across the concourse there and see the fence and see that there's movement there.
Yeah.
So what do you got, Angel? Let's take a look.
Well, we're looking at 2250.
Let's put that up again.
Through
Yeah.
2240 through 2250, Grand Concourse off of 182nd Street. These were built in 1915. So these
Wow.
are pretty old.
Look at all
And
the work that they did during that period of time
lots of
to
work,
build
yes.
up the Bronx.
Absolutely. You know, the Grand Concourse was opened, right before the the turn of the 20th century. This wasn't the style of housing on the Grand Concourse. It was more smaller, residential style, Queen Anne, very pitch roofs. So later on, it was not until the 19-teens and 20s you saw tenement buildings like this being erected. Now, can you guess what type of architecture is this?
Don't ask me to do that.
Italian it one more time. Now, Italian it varies. It varies throughout, right? You have to just research these buildings, zoom in, and kind of pick up the type of clues here. So it's a pretty fun exercise, but, it's a lot of research involved as well.
The variety, like I look at that, I mean, to me it's just lovely. And I guess, do you have a sense of the level of maintenance we've been able to do, or are you, as a historian, concerned that some of this beautiful architecture is just not being kept up? I mean, property owners are going to have to spend a lot of money, let's be honest.
It could be both, but what's important is landmark status. Like, for example, the Fish Building on the Grand Concourse, for a while that was going through some trouble. But once the landmark status kicked in, now you saw the landlords and, the property owners taking care of
taking it
Right.
seriously.
Right, absolutely.
That Fish Building, is that where Babe Ruth once lived? That's what the rumor is.
Is it a rumor?
I don't know. It's one of the rumors.
I thought it was the Concourse Hotel.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Well, there
yeah.
was another one in Highbridge I saw, actually. All right, let's just move on. Speaking of Highbridge, here we go.
Yes, these are nice.
This is nice because of the hill. It's built on 2 levels. Joe, what do you got? What do you want to say about this?
There's a picture again that I just saw and I had to take. It was just the right time of day, and another time of day it wouldn't have worked out as well. It's right. Anderson Avenue is on the left, going down the hill towards Yankee Stadium, and I think it's Shakespeare Avenue on the right, and it comes and Shakespeare Avenue runs up past where I'm standing.
Yep.
It's again a typical example of Bronx architecture, where it takes advantage of the what land that there is, and they build into it rather than not using it.
There's
a state.
Joe, where is Yankee Stadium from the vantage point of the person taking that photograph? Behind you? Like, where is this?
In front of me, going down the hill to the left.
Downhill to the left. You see, Angel knew right away. All right, Angel. What?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this building. I lived on Woody Crest, which is not too far.
Not too far.
This is 1201 Shakespeare Avenue, and just looking at the building, right, it looks Shakespearean. It looks English. It looks like a castle. This is Tudor style, but a tenement Tudor style. So remember that house we saw on Woodlawn? You would see similar features here. For example, if you look on the top, those the ornamental gables there,
Right.
The battlements on top to make it look like a castle. Right. So this is a Tudor style type of architecture, and it's congruent throughout the neighborhood as well.
We see a lot of buildings. Of course, there's one on the Concourse and Tremont Avenue where there's literally that one apartment.
Yeah.
That is at the edge of the building. And it always just looked fascinating to me. Again, I'd love to be invited in to see what they look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these are amazing. I see a lot of Tudor-style buildings near the Grand Concourse, but like the Andrew Friedman home. In fact, there is a street called Tudor Place. And it has
is that a result of that?
Beautiful specimens of these Tudor styles.
We have a bunch of photos. We want to move quickly. The next one, let's go to Kingsbridge Heights. Joe, do you know where this is?
I think this is Reservoir Avenue. I'm not sure.
Oh, Reservoir Avenue.
Yeah, and it's just like again, anytime I'm in the neighborhood, I've been by there, I've tried to take a picture from different angles. I just love the rounded corners and the way even the way the fire escapes are. I have a
Right.
thing for fire escapes.
Joe, I want to move ahead so we get to all the photos. Let's just look at the next one, which is in Morris Heights. This one is, of course, fascinating. One would think people have round bedrooms. Let's let
I would think so. Yeah.
let's let Angel comment
Yeah.
on that just to move it forward.
This is 2042 Grand Avenue, built in 1923. And this is on along West Burnside Avenue. Once again, Italianate type of architecture. This was a very popular style for tenement buildings at the time.
I think there's one in my neighborhood. that looks like
Absolutely.
that.
And
Yeah.
the only way you would really know if you go on Google Maps view, like Street View, and you go around and look at the entrance of the building, it would give you those telltale signs of an Italianate style of architecture.
Wow. Let's go to Morris Park. We're going to go east right now. This is so fascinating to me because it's just gorgeous. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we're looking.
It's on Van Ness Avenue, I think.
Oh,
And
this.
it's like it's that type of house you can see only in that neighborhood. I haven't seen it anyplace else in the Bronx,
Yeah.
or anyplace else in the city for that matter.
Well-
It's just an amazing way that was built, a little castle there.
Well, it's supposed to look like an Italian villa, a Tuscan villa. And this is 1000 Van Ness Avenue, built in 1929. It's an Italianate, right? But once again, it's highly varied. So there's different styles.
I love it.
Different,
I love it.
motifs and features. And this is telltale sign. You look at the arched windows, very narrow. And if you look at the little belvedere on top,
Yes.
right, you can actually stand inside and look out. So that's called a belvedere. If you weren't able to do that, it would be called a cupola. So there are some terms that in architecture that, they're quite technical.
It just is absolutely gorgeous
Yeah.
to me. Just looking at the variety, I'm again always wonder from the perspective of people living in there. I wonder
Yeah.
what it looks like.
And I saw this on a tax photo, and it didn't have the roof on top of the balcony, so it looked pretty
Did you
much
say
like
a tax photo?
tax photos from the 1940s. If you go on the Department of Buildings, there are some tax photos, and you punch in the lot and plot number, and you would see this photograph in 1939, and it looked so much like a Tuscan villa, somewhere in the countryside.
Joe, well, let's go to Morrisania, and Angel has something interesting about this one.
Yeah.
This is obviously a range of them. Did you take it from like a train station?
No, I took this up East 165th Street near the Grand Concourse. And I used a telephoto lens to get this effect. It's a shot that I've been wanting to get from a couple of places, and this the opportunity for this just opened up to me. Just get all those buildings sort of compressed against each other was what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, what I like is the fact that people say, well, it's an urban jungle, but there's trees. There's here we are in this dense urban spot. So Angel, do this, and then you found another photo
Yeah.
that was interesting. So
Yeah,
talk
so-
about this, and then we'll talk about your photo.
What's fascinating about that photo is that, yes, you see a lot of Italianate style of architecture in the tenements, but if you look right in the middle, that house there with the pitch roof, that's another style of architecture. It could be Queen Anne style, it could be stick, right? But it's a fascinating photo because it's the only one that's pretty much differing from the others.
That's
yeah.
an interesting thing.
Yeah,
There-
so
there
you
it
see
is.
the-
You can see that
yeah.
little gray thing or dark gray
Right.
in the middle.
So the building right next to it seems to be a newer structure, but the one surrounding, that's just different styles of Italianate architecture. They have the cornices, all the telltale signs.
And then you pulled out something from the historical record at the Huntington Free Library and Reading Room.
Yeah.
What is this now? So this is similar, right?
So it's pretty much the same neighborhood. What
Really?
you're looking at is 3rd Avenue in the 1880s off of 170th Street. Now, you see the smokestack right in the middle. If you look to the right of that smokestack, that is the Eichler Brewery. That brewery's been operating since the 1850s. That type of architecture was a Second Empire Gothic style. And the mansard roof, how the roof kind of slopes in like that, that's a telltale sign of that. That was before it was torn down.
We've had
Yeah.
and we have breweries in the Bronx. It's something that
Absolutely.
people don't know a lot of. Maybe they do know a lot
Oh
about.
yeah! In fact, the 1870s, the Bronx was like the epicenter of beer brewing because it coincided with the
Wow.
German, immigration period as well. So
Fascinating.
there was a point on 3rd Avenue in a 12 blocks radius, you had like 10 breweries operating.
This is going to be our final picture. I think we fit them all in. This takes us down to Longwood in the South Bronx, doesn't it, Joe?
Yeah, again, this is a neighborhood that I just discovered that I didn't know anything about. I wanted to find the landmark districts in the Bronx, and this I took this from Longwood Avenue, and it just sort of really just jumped out at me.
Well, to me, the mix of colors is
Yeah.
fascinating. Angel, we got, I don't know, just about a minute.
Nope.
Let's get to it.
This
What
is
do you
Beck
got?
Street, and this is 1898 to 1901. These were designed by Warren C. Dickerson, and these are neo-Renaissance and Romanesque revivals. Right, so this is just a mixture of all these classical styles and just bunched into these beautiful structures here. And you notice that they're not identical.
No,
This was all intentional.
Boy, I sure wish we could do this kind of thing again. Listen, Joe, you just did a great job for us again this year. Where do we go? To wanderingnewyork.blogspot.com? Do I remember that correctly?
WanderingNewYork.tumblr.com.
Say that again?
WanderingNewYork.tumblr.com.
Ah, there you go. .tumblr.com. Somehow I thought it was Blogspot. All right, there it is. Joe, thank you so much for your photos and for getting out there, and we hope that we'll get to do that again sometime.
Always a pleasure, Gary.
Great.
Thanks,
and
Joe.
Angel, you really, without you, what do we got? We got nothing. This whole history thing would be a makeup
This is
thing.
fun. This was a pleasure.
Great.
Thank you.
Angel Hernandez. And listen, just make an appointment, go and see the Huntington Free Library and Reading Room over there in
Westchester
Square
Yeah.
is where it is. And that's going to do it. Thanks to our producer, Rebecca Hemick, and our director, Joe Boonchan, who did a great job mixing the photos and getting everything together. To the cast of thousands who are around us here in the studio. Next week, we hope to have Council Member Marjorie Velasquez join us. But again, Happy New Year to you and yours, and to Joe, and to Angel, and to everybody in the Bronx. Peace and love in 2023. Good night.